Well, welcome everyone to the Dashboard Dojo. Really glad to have you here. Today is the third of part 3 on formulas for reporting. We do use DevOrgs in this in the Dojo. If it's your first time here, there's a link at the bottom of the page of the slide here. It's a bit.ly link. Takes you to a page on the Dashboard Dojo site, which asks you to do 3 things to set up a special kind of dev org. The reason to use these is that these orgs have thousands of records in them. A regular dev org might have 50. So it makes it a little more interesting for reporting. We have some more data. So even if you just did step 1 out of the 3 steps to set up an org, that would be great for today. If you've set up an org before for the Dojo, you're totally great. So why don't we get started? Again, welcome to Formulas for Reporting Part 3 in the Dashboard Dojo. Glad to have you back. My name is David Carnes. Really glad to have you here. We also have Kyle Shagnon from the OpFocus team helping us out with the chat and questions. So for the agenda for today, we'll recap setting up your dev org if you haven't done it yet. Just do a quick intro of myself, and then we'll dive into Waza and Shiai. So techniques and practice. We'll do some hands-on exercises, and I'll also just show you some examples. We'll talk about some of the upcoming Dojo topics. So in the month of April, we're going to focus on report types. So we'll do standard and custom report types in the 2 sessions in April. It's probably the most important topic that doesn't yet have its own badge on Trailhead, in my opinion. There are 1,000 publicly visible badges, and there are none on report types. So we're going to do it ourselves in the Dojo in April. We'll talk about upcoming OpFocus training events, and then we'll have, I think we should have plenty of time for Q&A today. All right, so again, if you've just joined us for the first time and you haven't set up a dev org, we use what are called these old Einstein Analytics enabled dev orgs. There's a couple of reasons why we use these dev orgs. They have thousands of records in them. They also have a tool called the Trailhead Data Manager that allows you to move the dates in these old records up to the current date. And that's kind of helpful with reporting as well. If you only did step 1 today, which could take you a couple of minutes, that would be fine to do the hands-on stuff today. All right. So who am I? I am not the guy in front of the little Yaki Imo truck there. So my name is David Carnes. I'm the chairman and chief evangelist of OpFocus. I just had this cool announcement the other week about becoming a Salesforce MVP. So that was kind of cool. I'm also a Yaki Imo aficionado. So what is a Yaki Imo? Well, much like in parts of where I live, children run after these things called ice cream trucks. Well, in Japan, when I lived in Japan, we'd hear this haunting sound. I had an apartment in Western Japan. It's kind of an industrial area. And at a sort of like late afternoon, early evening, you'd hear these trucks driving around in the neighborhood. And this is an example of one of those. And they sold essentially grilled sweet potatoes. And they were kind of charred. And they'd grill them right on the truck. And you could sort of, like what you do with an ice cream truck, sort of, wave at them and get them to come by and sell you sweet potatoes. So it's sort of a cool thing, but the sound still haunts me. This Yaki mo ikaga desu ka? Oishii yo. And it was like blasted throughout the neighborhood with music. So OpFocus, we are a 50-person Salesforce Gold partner. We're based in the US and Canada. We work with SaaS companies on their RevOps. And so a lot of our work is tied to Salesforce. I've been teaching on the platform for 16 years and love reports and dashboards. So this is where Dashboard Dojo was born. All right, really glad you're with us. So what we're going to talk about today, I'd like to ask for those of you that are interested in sharing. So we've done 2 sessions on formulas for reporting in the Dashboard Dojo. If any of you have had any success since the other sessions or just want to share a formula use case that solved a problem, just describe it, that would be great. Then we'll just do a quick recap about the 4 types of formulas that we use in reporting. Then we're going to dive into a handful of examples. So a number of these are going to be row-level formulas because, hey, they solve problems directly on reports. In the olden days, we used to always create custom formula fields for a lot of these things, but we can do more of it within row level formulas. So we're kind of showing that off today. We'll spend some time on the power of one. If you haven't heard of the power of one, it is the simplest and most powerful formula tool out there, probably, and it just sort of cuts through and solves problems. So we're going to create a couple of custom formula fields that literally just produce the number one. The formula is the number one, and it just helps solve issues, especially for reporting across multiple objects. And if we're using custom report types, and we just need to get into exactly how many of this thing are there. We'll do an example of year-over-year reporting. It's kind of, it sort of has a special meaning right now because a lot of us, our businesses stopped about a year ago today. So where are we with our sales through today this year versus March 24th a year ago? And so you can sort of march through time, and we can use a simple trick with row level formulas to solve that. I thought it'd be fun to add some color and some emojis. So we'll add some images to reports. We'll talk about 3 different ways to do that. And then we'll use the parent group val. I sort of feel like I'm on the stump or on the soapbox with prev group val and parent group val functions. They're just so useful when reporting on summary data to be able to compare groupings, grouping against total and whatnot. So what we'll do is we'll do a percentage of total amount and record count analysis, and we'll put that into a scatter plot. It's not the deepest sort of analysis, but we have the data to do it, so we can do it. You might find other ways for it to be useful. All right, cool. Yes, so George asks, will we each owe Steve Mo a beer? Yeah, I'll talk about Steve Mo in a sec. All right, so if you haven't set up your dev org, again, this is the final mention of it. There are 3 steps if you want to do them. We only need you to do the first step for today. So just have this special kind of dev org. If you do it in your own production instance, it's not my favorite thing. You know, the data will obviously be different and you're mucking around in production. So the best bet is to set up one of these orgs. It's yours forever, and you can use it in a future dojo if you join us again. All right, so just thought to throw it out there. The last couple of sessions, we've asked people to, if they want, raise their hand. You know, since our last session, I'm just curious if anybody has used a formula to solve a problem effectively, and maybe if you want to describe it, share, you know, your name, where you're based, and, you know, did you solve something interesting with a formula? I got an email last night from a woman named Lauren Long, who shared something that I'll show a little later today with that year-over-year reporting. So that was kind of cool. Looks like Tim's raised his hand. Kyle, welcome back, Tim.
Hey, good afternoon. Thanks. Yeah, I created a little. So the context is an app, a custom object that keeps track of boards of directors and looks at sort of the class, the current sort of class, and then like there are these multiple terms that directors can serve. And so the formula field I created creates sort of like an estimated date upon which we think, an estimated class date if this current board member sticks around for sort of 3 periods or 3 terms. It basically helps predict what a board class might consist of in 9 years if the current board member stayed through their current set of terms. So,
oh, cool.
And so pretty helpful, just kind of forecasting based on 2 other fields that exist on the record.
I love it. I mean, there's so many nice use cases for formulas. Like I think of one a lot, like every now and then the data is this way and you need it to be this way. And it's like such a perfect example for pulling out a formula and just using functions perhaps to shift the data around, you know, or as Tim shared, to do math. So really great example. That sounds powerful.
Yep.
Anyone else want to share a formula success that they've had? Kyle, have you been writing any formulas lately?
I have not. I need to start diving into it a little bit more.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Tim, for sharing. Why don't we keep going? Because we've got a bunch of things to talk through. So as we talked through in the prior 2 sessions, and both of the recordings are available on the Dashboard Dojo resources page, we've sort of stepped through these pretty thoroughly. We have row level formulas on a report. We can have one of those per report. We can have summary formulas on a report. We can have up to 5 of those per report. We can have cross-block formulas, and that would appear on a joined report. We can have quite a lot of those if we need them on our joined reports. And then finally, we have the old standby. Every now and then, we sort of need to do something on the underlying object. So the power of one will be an example of that today. We'll use that. But also, there's another example we'll show today is creating a formula field on an object to pull in images. And you could take a picture of your boss with a happy face and your boss with a not so happy face and an unhappy face, and you could stick them into Salesforce and refer to them using a formula field, and then display it on reports or on a list view or that sort of thing. So, you know, even though we have these 3 types on the reports themselves, keep in mind that we can always use one of our up to 500 custom fields in the enterprise edition per object. You know, it doesn't hurt to burn a few fields for custom formulas that we might want to use in reporting. It's very common. You don't even have to put them on the page layouts. You could just create the formula field under the hood, sort of do the gymnastics that you need to with the data, and then use it in reporting. All right, so let's get started. I want to start off with an exercise. So guys, let's get to work. What I'd like you to do, so our CFO is asking us to transform all close dates to the last day of that month into what she calls the allocation date. So I've shown this example before, but I'd like you to try it. So what you do is create an opportunity report in your system. So create a report on opportunities, add a row level formula. So next to the word columns in that left-hand menu, next to the word columns, there's an action pull down and you can add a row level formula. Let's give it a name, allocation date. You can see it right here on the screen. And the output type is a date. And Kyle will plug that code so you don't have to type it all out. He'll plug that into the chat. But what this is doing is it's taking the close date of an opportunity and it's just changing it in a way that we need to change it. So if you copy in from the chat, starting with the if down to the closing parentheses and put that into a row level formula called allocation date, then we can add that column. And you can see what the output looks like over here on the right-hand side of the screenshot. That February 17th becomes February 28th and November 1st becomes November 30th. And this is sort of future-proof for the next leap year. So no problem, this will handle leap years fine. So if we can all try that out. So again, if you go to the reports tab, create a new report, choose the opportunity report type. Don't have to change anything else for this particular example. We'll just keep it simple. Just go ahead and next to the columns, add a row level formula, and then copy in the if statement that Kyle put into the chat into your row level formula, and we can produce these results. So while you're doing that, I'll just share, and I talked about this example before, you know, we're keying this off of the close date and we're using a few functions to get at what we want. So we're extracting the month, we're using a month function of the close date. And if it's December, then we're going to basically manufacture 12/31 of the current year with that line 3 in the screenshot here. And that 4th line basically says for all other months, use the current year and the current month, and then take go to the next month, first day, and subtract a day. And that's what that row 4 does. So there's a little bit going on here, but I thought to just start off with this example. I'll just show you what the output looks like. In my system, you can see I've got the close date field on an opportunity report. I really haven't done much else to this report. So I created a report on opportunities. We have the close date. And then you can see here that a formula has been added. This is a row level formula. And you can see the FX. The reason I know it's a row level formula is that it's appearing on every single row. There are no groupings on this report, so it can't be a summary report. This is not a joined report, so it can't be a cross-block formula. So this is just a row level formula here, and we can see it down at the bottom of the column list. So when we went to add it, we went to just to the right of columns, and we chose to add a row level formula. It's currently grayed out because we're only allowed one, and it's already been added. So if I click on it, we can just take a peek at it. We gave it a name of allocation date. The formula output type was date. And then we pasted in the if, the formula starting with the if statement, the if function, and pasted in those 5 lines that Kyle put into the chat. You want to validate your formulas. This just checks the syntax. You still want to test your formulas after you add a formula like this, to still want to like eyeball it. But once I go ahead and apply this, I've got potentially thousands of opportunities. If you have thousands, you've got many, many opportunities, and you can just eyeball it and see if the dates are working correctly. And it looks like in this case it is. All right, so hopefully you had some success with that first exercise. I want to dive into the power of one. So the power of one is one of those interesting things. This is, I probably first heard of it in 2009 or something like that. So a long, long time ago. It still has value to us in our systems. And where it seems to become really important is when you have multiple objects that you want to count things up, and the record count sort of gets diluted. It sort of loses its value. So in this case, I have a report that I created on accounts with or without cases. So I want to see all my accounts, and if they have cases, show me those, but I want to see all my accounts regardless of whether they have cases. So that's a bit of a mouthful. I have 1,000 accounts in the system. I have 1,600 cases, but lo and behold, I have 1,826 records. And so when you have multiple objects like this, the record count kind of loses meaning. It's not useful to us. And one solution that we have is to use this thing called the power of one. So I created a formula on accounts, and I created another one on cases, and we'll do this in a second together. We'll do one together, and then I'll have you do the exercise. So literally it's just counting up the number of accounts that Bruce Kennedy owns. And it's also counting up the number of the number of cases associated with accounts that Bruce Kennedy owns. And the total record count is something else. So some of these must not have cases, and some of these have multiple cases. But if I want to know essentially what is the true count of accounts and the true count of cases associated to each one of these account owners, we can do it using the power of one. Now, this screenshot over here on the left is just using the out-of-the-box cases, and this has an equijoin under the hood, which means in order to see an account, there has to be a case, and in order to see a case, there has to be an account. And so the record count will be accurate for essentially the child object. In this case, that the sum of the cases is 81 and the record count is 81s. But we're kind of losing a little bit of detail here because of the equijoin. And because of that, I created a custom report type called accounts with or without cases. We'll talk about report types next month in the dojo. But if you just trust me on, if you have multiple objects and you want to dig into to be able to count actual numbers, the power of one is very powerful for this. So if we dig into this, the way that we can do this, and we'll do this example together in a second, then I'll have you do an exercise. So we literally can create a custom formula field. So we'll use one of our 500 fields per object in Enterprise Edition. This takes about 10 seconds to create, but the power of it suddenly gives you more options with reporting. So literally, we're just going to use the plural object of the name. So in a minute, we're going to create a custom formula field called accounts. The output type will be number. We'll have 0 decimals. And the formula literally, and I had Kyle as a joke put it into the chat, it's literally just the number 1. That's how complicated our formula is. There's no need to put this on a page layout. It doesn't really do much for a page layout because you're looking at an account. You don't need to see that there's one account on that account. So I'd probably never put it on a page layout, but it's always available to us for reporting. And it gives us that more precise counting of records than just record count. So Steve Moe talks about this a lot and has presented on it a lot. He gives credit to a Salesforce product manager from years ago named Thomas Tobin. Why don't we go ahead and do this example on accounts together? So we can see the screenshot on the right. We're going to create a new custom field. And it's going to be a formula field. It's just going to have the number 1 in it. And then we could then go ahead and use it on reports. So back in our system, if we were to go under setup, so if you click on setup, and if you're not a sysadmin, this might be something that you ask a sysadmin to do for you. But what they can do is click on the gear to go under setup, and then go to the object manager under setup, and then to the accounts object, and then to fields and relationships. So again, I've gone to setup, I've clicked on object manager, gone to the list of accounts, and I'm looking at the list of fields now under the account object. And I already created one of these for just to create these reports, but let's go ahead and create one together for the account object. So a power of 1 field for the account object. So again, we're under setup, object manager, accounts, fields and relationships. And this is what an admin can do. We'll go ahead and click the new button to create a new field. And we'll make it a formula field. So we click the new button to create a new field. We're choosing formula as the field type. And then we'll go ahead and click next. And we'll just call this accounts. So just plural accounts. And I don't want it to be accounts too. So accounts will be fine. The output type of this, the return type, is going to be number. And I'm going to have 0 decimal places. I don't need decimals. There's no fractional accounts here. This might be a little small, so I'll try to bump it up a touch. So again, the field label on our new custom formula field on the account object is accounts, and it's going to be formula return type number, and the output decimal places will be 0. And in the wizard here, we're on step 2 of 5. I'm going to go ahead and click next, and we can write our really complicated formula. So in this case, it doesn't matter if it's a simple formula or an advanced formula. It just truly doesn't matter. I prefer to use the advanced formula because we have access to functions and we have access to just more stuff. So Salesforce remembers that that's your preference. If it's your first time in this system, it'll bring you to a simple formula. In this case, it just doesn't matter. Literally, we're just typing the number 1. Now, as a good rigorous tester of all formulas, I do want to check the syntax, but it's a bit silly because it's going to be fine. It's just the number 1. So let's keep going here. Let's go ahead and click next. And we will allow people to view this. So we'll just accept the defaults and we'll click next. And this is something that I'm probably not going to put on the page layouts because this is just going to be wasted space showing me that you are looking at one account. Yes, I know I'm looking at an account. I don't need the number 1. So I'll go ahead and uncheck the add field. All right, so what did we just do? We just went into setup, object manager, accounts, fields and relationships. We created a new formula field on the account object called accounts, and it's a formula and it's just the number 1. So now we can go use this and we can go back to the reports tab. And this is something that we can go ahead and take advantage of. Why don't we do this before we do this? Let's actually have you do the same thing on your own for the case object. So when you hear Steve Moe present on the Power One or you hear other people talk about this, they actually will go through their key objects and create a power of 1 formula field on each one of the key objects that they're going to report on. So in this case, we seek an easy way to sum up cases on various reports and report types. So let's create a formula field. This is a custom field on the case object. So again, if you're not a sysadmin normally, this is something you might ask a sysadmin to do in our dev org, so you can do it on your own. So if you go under setup, object manager, cases, fields and relationships, and then create a new formula field on case, again with just the number 1. And you can see the definition here in the screenshot on the right. So again, I typically wouldn't put this on the page layout. So in my own system, I might do this for leads. I might do this for opportunities. I might do it for opportunity products. I could do it for products. You know, especially in cases where you have multiple objects. So Tim gave the example before of using a custom object to track board placements. And there might be a reason to do this on that object as well to facilitate a way, you know, a particular reporting need that he has and allow him to drill in on the actual number of records. All right, I'll just show this example in my own system here. So I've created this one already. I just went under Setup, Object Manager, Cases, Fields and Relationships. And then I clicked the New button. And what I built is this field here that I simply called Cases. And you can see here that again, the formula is just the number 1. It's a number as the output type, and the number of decimal places is 0. You don't really want decimal places when you use this. So if we were to take a peek at this in actual use, so I've got a report that I already created with this, and I created a custom report type. We won't do all that now, but just to show you the power of it, if I go into edit this, all I've done is I've added the accounts column, and I added the cases column that we just created, and those yield the number 1. And then I clicked on each one and just made sure that they were summed. So you could create a report on accounts and cases, and you could add these 2 columns, make sure that they're summed up. And if I show you the expanded view of this, you know, we can see each of the number. There are 7 cases, and even though the number of accounts is appearing over and over and over, there are only really 2 accounts here. So there's Santiago, which has 4 cases, and there's Harrison, which has 3 cases. So the actual number of distinct accounts is 2. So this is really the power of 1 in action right here. And you can just use this. So again, with the power of 1, people will go to each of the objects that they need to report on. Some people will just by default in any system that they work in create power of 1 fields for the majority of the objects. Cool. Okay, hope that's useful to you. I do want to dive into a couple of examples. So Lauren Long sent me an email last night. I modified it slightly just for my own selfish purposes for this case, but so for year-over-year reporting, today's March 24th, and aside from being a very special day in my life, it's my birthday. It's you know, it's just sort of like, you know, we were sort of a year ago, we were sort of figuring out what does this coronavirus thing mean to us and our organizations. So I'm curious, like where things are today versus where they were exactly on the 24th a year ago. I created a report with that, and I sort of spiced it up a little bit by adding in the largest deal size and the average deal size, just to compare the first 3 months, you know, almost 3 full months of each year. So for this, what I did was, so we created a row level formula, and this allowed us to highlight last year's ops years to date. And you can see that row level formula here on the left. And I just called it last year to date. It's not exactly that. It's anything before 365 days ago is true. Any opportunity with a close date before, but I'm using filters to sort of box it in. So I created something that just clarifies anything that has a close date before 365 days ago. So that's one part of the equation. And then I've taken the amount field and I've not just only summed it, but I've averaged it and maxed it. Oh, thank you, Pat, for the happy birthday, and happy birthday to you on Saturday. George, I love the power of 1 is friggin' awesome. I get such a kick, and I grew up in Boston. When I came home from Japan, people asked me what country I was from because I sort of lost my whatever accent I had. But anyway, so over here on the right, so with this particular example, what we've done is just shown all opportunities that are closed won. So give me all opportunities of all time. So in the standard filters, give me the opportunity status only closed won. So we're only caring about closed won. And then I added 3 quick filters. So the one on the row level formula. So one of the powerful things we can do with the row level formula is use it in a filter. So I basically said, if it's true, then include that. And the close date was last year. So that boxes it into 2020 plus anything on or before March 24th, 2020. And then we said, so that's giving us last year or anything that's, essentially the close date of this year, assuming we don't close things in the future. So as long as we don't have that bad habit of closing things in September now, that doesn't make any sense, we should be good with this particular example. So in the system, I'll just show it to you. And now I have a ton of, which one is it? So that's my power of one example. Oh, that's too funny. Did I really open all these tabs up? Aha, here it is. Okay, so just to show you this, I created a report. You can always tell the report type. When you're editing the report, you have the gray oval here. This is just a report on opportunities. This is the report type that I used. And I created a formula field, a row level formula. And here's the, if the close date is less than or equal to today minus 365, and I put the today minus 365 in parentheses to make sure it did the math first to give us March 24th, 2020. So if it's before then, return true, otherwise return false. I did have to put the parentheses here because the output type options are limited on a row level formula. So I made the output type text, and it's either true or false. And then we're going to use that in the filter. All right, this is when the part of the program when the Zoom windows get in the way. Oh, there we go. Okay. So, as I mentioned, the filters, we cleaned them up, made it closed won, last date. We did use that formula field, the row level formula in the filter. And what this gives us when I go run it is it's a little hard to look at because clearly 2021, we've sold 97 million. Last year at this point, we sold 32 million. But, we can do some interesting analysis with this. So I kind of wish these things were a little bit closer together. I could make my windows smaller. I wish I could change the scale on this particular view. But the largest deal before March 24th a year ago was 4.8 million. The average deal size was 911,000. This year, our average deal size is higher. The largest deal size is smaller. So it's sort of interesting because we've sold so much more this year. And clearly we have 100 closed won opportunities as of this year before March 24th, only 35 last year. Kyle, can you drop that formula into the chat?
I do not believe that is one of the formulas that you sent to me.
Oh, man. All right. It's this one here. I'll grab it. Actually, let me grab the. Okay. Great. All right, so let's talk about adding images to your reports. Guys, we can add images to our reports. There's no reason not to. In fact, in the last 24 hours, I tried something I hadn't tried before, which is to add emojis. So Salesforce gives us a bunch of out-of-the-box sample images, flags, red light, green light, stars, stuff like that. So that's one option. You could also take a picture of your boss with a happy face, with a neutral face, with an unhappy face. You could either put them out somewhere on the web and refer to the entire URL, the full address of where that location is on the web, or there's another option. If you poke around in the Salesforce world, you can actually find out how to reference an image that's stored within Salesforce. So in the olden days, we used to do it with something that doesn't really exist anymore called the Documents tab. There's a much better way to do it now. to upload the images. I'll see if I can find an article on it online and share that out. But using the stock images that come with Salesforce, you can see the example over here on the left. So this is using a custom formula field on the case object. And we just happen to be using the case function on the case object. How cool is that? And we're saying if the priority of the case is high, show a red flag. If it's medium, show a green flag. If it's medium, show a yellow flag. If it's low, show a green flag. So this is how we did it for years with custom formula fields. So this works great as one particular option. And sort of a side benefit of doing this with a custom formula field is you can display it not only on reports, but you could put it on a page layout if you wanted to put a flag right up at the top right of the corner of the page layout, or you could display it in list views as well. So this is one example. I think I have a report open with the flag. So just to show you, so the actual formula is in a formula field, and I've just added the formula field to the report. So this is one way of doing it. So with the introduction of row level formulas, we have another way to do this, and this is with Emoji. So as sort of this is before the row level formula. We can also use emojis on custom formula fields. So I thought to mention that. So if you don't have any images and you really are fond of putting like a poop emoji on there, so my kids got a laugh out of seeing that. But if the low, you want to put a smiley face with sunglasses, or like a sick face or whatever, you can do it. So it's essentially a simpler formula field than the one we just showed. So this is the actual formula here. It's basically using a case function, and it's extracting the pick list value of each case in the priority field. And if it's low, show the smiley face with the sunglasses, etc. And this again is something, because it's a formula field, you can put this output on reports, on page layouts. You can also put it on list views. And something I didn't realize until probably 2 in the morning last night, on a Mac, if you hit Control, Command, and the space bar, it pops up the full list of maybe a couple hundred emojis. I don't know how to do it on the PC. Maybe somebody can post that to chat, how to do it on the PC to essentially insert an emoji. So this is kind of fun way to add some color. The third way to do this is actually directly on the report. It's actually using the same exact formula syntax. We can actually create a row level formula. And so this is what I'd like you to do for an exercise right now. So again, we're just going to create a report, going to create it on cases. You don't have to do anything with columns or anything with filters. Let's just create a report on case. And then next to the word columns, that pull down, let's add a row level formula. Let's just call it emoji. And the output type will be text. So emoji is considered text, even though it's an emoji. And what we're going to do is use the case function, again, on the priority values. So that same formula that I showed, which can be used on a custom formula field, we're going to use in a row level formula. So this is a really nice way to add some immediate splash and color, maybe not a poop emoji. Does that have another name? Does anybody know? Is it called the poopy face emoji? Like, what is that called? I don't know. Maybe it's not that important, but you can have some fun with, there are lobster emoji, there are whales, there's all kinds of stuff. It was supposed to be ice cream. Oh, that's great, Casey. Thank you for sharing. Yes, I can. Well, no, I can't. Unless it's like, chunky monkey ice cream or sort of, I don't know. Maybe that has banana in it. Anyway, let's not go there. That's great. Oh, thank you, Michael, for sharing the Windows emoji keyboard shortcut. So that's in chat right now for any of you that haven't used that before. So, have some fun, like add some color. This is going to blow somebody away. They're going to be like, oh my God, you programmed color into my reports. It'll make somebody's day to see emojis. But again, you have, bicycles, you've got whales, you've got all kinds of things you can take advantage of. So have some fun with this. So I'll just show you in the system. So I have another report set up, And this is, oh, this is the custom formula field. So this is pulling in, it's not, this is a formula field on the case object itself. And again, I could put that in a page layout or a list view. That's this particular example here. But then I have a row level formula, and you can see the FX here, and that's telling us that it's a row level formula. That's telling us it's a formula. But if I go into the report itself, so this would be the output that I would be asking you for with this exercise, that you created a report on the case object. You don't have to change anything else. Just go right to the columns, add a row level formula field. I've already done it. I called it emoji. Click on the, and here is the formula itself that Kyle put into the chat. We just paste that in, validate it. You can pick other emoji if you're really offended that I use the poop emoji here. All right, so Carissa has an error. Coding row level formula field priority does not exist, check spelling. Oh, did I spell it wrong in my example? Gosh, I thought I copied it exactly. I'm sorry about that. Hopefully no one else suffered from the misspelling. I do apologize. You know, one of the best things you can do, like if you're ever unsure, is, you know, if I want to just get rid of this. So this is like sort of real time dealing with a problem in a formula. I can just come back over. I will always pull over the field, you know, essentially insert it. So I put my cursor where I want it over on the right, find the field in the list of fields on the left, and then click the insert button. I guess I have to select it. Click the insert button, and there it is for me. This is going to save you so much pain and heartache, especially when you're doing things with formula fields across object, and like getting the syntax across objects correctly is an interesting challenge. So I'll go ahead and validate that, and I'll click apply and add it back to my report. And look at that. Look at those colorful emoji. So I hope some of you have fun and report back to me on having had some fun with this. All right. All right, so the last example we'll do today is another parent group val. So in the last couple of sessions, which are recorded on the Dashboard Dojo site, actually in the second formulas for reporting, we dug into prev group val and parent group val. And these are so powerful. I think a lot of us kind of avoid them. So when you go to create a summary report, so if you if you group a report by something, then you have the ability to create a summary formula. And these are real powerful options. And in this case, we're analyzing the reps on their contribution to overall sales. And we're sort of digging in. This isn't super sophisticated. It's sort of like getting close to being sophisticated, but it's really not that sophisticated what I'm doing. But basically, I created two summary formulas. Both of them use the parent group val. So one of them is doing it on the amount, and the other one is doing it on the record count. And this is just showing the won opportunities by owner. We can see here in the screenshot that Laura Palmer, I can't say it, Laura Palmer, she, of the total, this 8.36%, her 34 million is 8.3%. 8.36% of the 409 million that we've sold. So this is basically comparing her contribution to the overall grand summary. And we can see that displayed over here on the left-hand screenshot, that we're basically taking her amount within her particular grouping, dividing it by the parent level, the grand summary of that same amount column. And that's where we're getting the 8.36%. Now I can do the same thing, and I did that with this summary formula. And keep in mind, you can have up to 5 summary formulas per report. So if you create a report and you group it, you can have 5 columns with summary formulas. So just to look at the math a little differently, we took the record count. How many won opportunities did she have with her 34 million? She had 26 out of the 387. So she had an 8.36 contribution to the total amount that we sold. And she did it with a smaller percentage of the deals. And, you know, essentially what we could discern by that is her average deal size is higher. But just to show some, you know, some tinkerings with this. So this is that second column here. I've got the row count and I'm dividing it by the parent group val. I don't think it works to make this bigger. I think everything else gets bigger except for the, oh no, I guess it did get a little bit bigger. That's good. So the row count divided by the parent group val. And again, this is saying get the parent row count from the grand summary. So that grand summary, when we go run the report, is the grand total of the, like my system is going to take its sweet old time with that, but okay, here we go. Now, what I also did was add a scatter plot on this just to make it a little more interesting. So when we look at the real data, so when I go run this on the real actual data, so it looks like Nicholas Weaver, aha, it looks like I lost my sorting, and I could go back, edit it, and reposition my sorting. It looks like it's sorting by Nicholas Weaver descending here, but I can see that Nicholas contributed 5.43% to the total, and his for the total amount, and 5.94% to the record count. We're kind of interested in this scatter plot. What's kind of cool about throwing this onto a scatter plot is I can see that Laura Palmer, she's really our best. She had the biggest contribution to our total one sales, and she did it with the smallest number of deals. So she's a sure bet. Let's make sure she gets promoted and has a fancy, like we want to keep her around. Whereas this guy here, this person, Catherine, isn't really contributing, and just really this person isn't quite in the same league. So it's sort of an interesting way to analyze what folks have been up to. All right, so what did we talk about? We talked about the types of formulas used in reporting. So the row level formulas, summary formulas, cross-block formulas, and then custom formula fields. We did a couple of examples today, the last day of the month. We did the power of one, which was a custom formula field. We did year over year, year-to-date reporting. That was row level. We looked at 3 different ways to add images to reports. And then we played around with the parent group val function on a summary report and the percentage of total amount record count. If you missed session 1 and session 2, we really spent a lot of time on session 1 on going through all the basics. And then session 2, we did some more examples. And then this session, we've gone a little deeper into the pool. You can find these recordings on the Dashboard Dojo site on the resources page. So there's the link in red up at the top. I've mentioned Evan and Aaron before, who write a blog called reportforce.blog. And if you haven't discovered it, they've got some really nice stuff. They're both very advanced thinkers on reports and dashboards, and it's really great to have them produce this resource. So the URL for that is just reportforce.blog. All right. I do want to mention there is something that's really, really helpful. If you're going to spend time with formulas, please take a look at the list of formula operators and functions. So there's the bit.ly link down at the bottom for this page. This is just a page in Salesforce Help. And basically, it talks about each of the different types of functions. And there's basically a page for each one, or a section of a page with examples, with the grammar and stuff like that. I highly suggest this. I have found some gems over the years that have helped me solve all kinds of problems. All right, so, oh, interesting. So Christy asked the question, sorry for the basic question, but why is the close month field not available in a custom report type for opportunities? So Salesforce, with the standard report types, threw some stuff in there, and there are some system generated formulas that just get added automatically to the standard report types. So they didn't do that, not knowing what you'd want when you create a custom report type. But there's nothing stopping you from writing a custom formula field and then including that in your custom report type. So Christy, that means you have to write some more formulas. But there are a couple of other ones that are super useful, like closed or open, which are system generated formulas that we can take advantage of. When we talk about report types next month, we'll dig into some more of these differences. There's some interesting nuances and things that Salesforce added into the standard report types that, like Christy noticed, we don't have with the out of the box, the custom report types when you create them. Yeah, my pleasure, Christy. All right. So we do have the 2 upcoming Dojo sessions. So Christy threw me a nice segue into report types. This is the most important topic that nobody talks about. Well, some people talk about it, but it's so incredibly important. That first decision when you create a report is which report type are you basing it on. And as Christy noticed, these aren't all created equal. And while it's incredible that we can create custom report types, they don't all have the same bells and whistles. So there are some real gems in the standard report types. And then there's some real power in our ability to create custom report types. So we'll do one session that'll be a little bit more of just an overview on April 8th. And then on April 22nd, I'll have you guys out building out report types for that. I do have 2 classes that I'm teaching coming up. So the OpFocus 5-day admin class and our 2-day Salesforce reporting workshop. Both of these will be in June. And we'd love to have you join us just on the OpFocus site on the training page. All right, why don't we take some Q&A? So hopefully you guys had some success doing the examples today. I haven't had the chat open for a little bit. Okay, thank you, George, for joining us. Custom report types. Thank you for the happy birthday wishes. All right, Tim joined us. So Lauren asked about sharing the slides. I guess I haven't found a place to put them yet. So why don't I reach out to you on an email? We can chat about it.
Casey wrote in saying that they're getting an error on the summary formula, grouping context.
Yes. So great thing. Let's take a quick look at that. So we talked about this in the, I think it was in the second Dojo. So that I know this is the row level formula. Let me open that one right back up. Parent group val. So this thing with the context. So if I could come in here and I try to write one of these formulas, the display, it's really, and it's sort of a shame that Salesforce just didn't take the one extra step. So when you use prev group val and parent group val, there's one extra step when you're creating these formulas, these summary level formulas, is to go in and specify a grouping level. And if you don't do that, Salesforce is going to give you an error, even though we only have one choice, really, which is the opportunity owner. In this particular example, we've only done one grouping. So I kind of wish they could just default it and we wouldn't get this error, but I'm glad that they give us the flexibility that if you did group it 3 times, you could be very specific. Thank you, Martin. So Martin asked the question, is there an easy way to calculate sales acceptance rate if you have one lifecycle field with, say, MQL, SQL, and 5 other non-relevant values? Any way to group this by field and then use brief group val to get the rate percentage? I wonder if my brain is a little fried, Martin. If you want to send me this example, maybe I can just answer it in the next Dojo, but I can look at it and sometimes hearing, so not everybody sets up the MQL, SQL the same way. So that's one interesting challenge. Then you've got the 5 other non-relevant values, which you may want to include somehow. So sorry to not have a quick answer for you without seeing the structure of it, but this is sort of one of those interesting things to, formulas might be a way to help you group the information, and you can use a row level formula and have that feed a summary formula. So keep that in mind, that every now and then you just need to change the data slightly or concatenate or group stuff to be able to do the gymnastics the way you want on your summary formula. All right, so Callie asked the question, this was probably covered in an earlier session, but how do we change the report type from tabular to summary? Oh, great question, Callie. So the way that you do that is, so I'm just going to show you creating a brand new report. So I'm just on the report tab, nothing up my sleeve. I'm going to click new report. And all you need to do in Lightning, so you select your report type. This one I just chose accounts, plain old accounts. And all you need to do is just group by rows. That's it. So let's say I want to group this by industry. So now this is officially a summary report now because it was tabular, there was no grouping. Now I've added my first grouping. Once you add your first grouping, a couple of things happen. The add chart button wakes up, the toggle switches appear at the bottom. The conditional highlighting will appear once I've summed by something. So if I add like annual revenue or something like that, and I sum by that, then you can see the conditional formatting appears down here in the bottom right. So a couple of things happen when you add your first grouping, including the ability to group columns, and that allows us to now change it to a matrix report. All right, so Christy, thank you for your feedback.
Sylvia wrote in as well saying, I was wondering if you're able to sort a list by multiple columns. I know it's easy enough with reporting, but doesn't seem possible in list view.
Oh, list views, no, but you know what? I've actually written a custom formula field to help with that. So it seems a little ridiculous to create a field, a custom formula field, to essentially create some kind of a weighting scheme that combines multiple columns into a sort. It's not perfect, but as of today, list views can be sorted by one column. So on dashboards with charts, we can sort by multiple columns. So that's one of the powerful things you can do on a dashboard chart is if you do have multiple things to sort, you can sort by multiple items. Great. All right. All right, so Michael, thank you, Michael. Glad you joined us. All right, I think that might be it for today, guys. So really glad that you joined us, and hope to see you on April Dojo sessions. So thank you so much. We'll hope to see you soon.